the talk that we're going to look at, the framework we're going to look at this morning, we're going to learn the ability to shift frames of reference, how to see things not from the way that I've always seen them. How many of you have ever walked into a room where someone doesn't speak English in an English-dominant environment? Okay, you've done that. And someone goes up to that person who doesn't speak English, speaking to them in English, not realizing that they don't speak English. Anyone seen this happen before? What happens once the person realizes that, bless you, that they don't speak English? They talk louder. Yes. As if there's something wrong with their hearing. Amazing. And sometimes slower. And and if you've ever experienced your own barrier with this, it's sort of like your work starts to feel like you're talking louder, louder, louder. You're doing the same things in the same way. Okay, maybe I'll try to tweak this a little bit, tweak this a little bit. Someone needs to say to that person, shift frames of reference, right? Doesn't speak English. What needs to move in me? It's not about them. It can't be about them. It's got to be in me. And that's one of the hardest things, obviously, about any of this work, is it's never about the other person. I am the common denominator in every interaction, in every group, in every forum, in every meeting. What's the shift that has to happen here? So we're going to look at shifting frames of reference. I'm going to teach you a model by an academic, but I'm not here to teach you his model. I'm going to apply it to the work that we're doing. Anyone ever heard of Dr. William Perry? I put doctor so we don't confuse him with the refrigerator football player. Okay. So Dr. William Perry is now dead, but he was a preeminent researcher in student development, and this is actually his student development model. It's called the Scheme of Cognitive and Ethical Development, and this is important, and we're going to talk about the ethics in this in just a little bit. And basically, I'll do a few disclaimers just so we can move through it and use it how it applies in this field, in this context. So William Perry studied white men at Harvard. So it's very likely that there would be a class, race, and gender bias in his work. Perry did not talk about emotions or feelings in any way in his research. And he didn't talk about imbalances of power, things like dominance and subordination. So we're going to try and bring all of that into it and apply it in the context of justice work. So Perry basically, he was just down and dirty, first year, second year, third year, fourth year in college. He labeled, or he would identify phases for how the students were able to think or process information or talk. And basically, they just line up right here. So dualism was the first year in college, multiplicity, second year, contextual relativism, third year, committed relativism, the fourth year. And in dualism, basically, you tend to think in terms of things that are good and bad, right or wrong, this or that. You're either part of the solution or you're part of the problem. Anybody heard these phrases before? Yes. Okay, so in a dualistic framework, I'm normal and you're abnormal. Okay, that's a dualistic framework. Let me think of other good examples. There's a center here for intercultural communication. They have a poster in the lobby, and it says, USers travel around the world and have beautiful international experiences in other parts of the world. And then there are USers who travel to other parts of the world and have US experiences in the vicinity of another country. I think of Cancun as a US experience in the vicinity of Mexico, okay? So they're not actually able to get into the context of someone else's experience. They're having their experience exactly as they want to have it, wherever they are. And, you know, there's tons of humbling stories I can share with you with my own experience, but basically it's, you know, these phrases like, how can these people eat that stuff? How can people live like that? And I, even as a Latina, I mean, I will tell you a very brief story. My sister had a Fulbright. She had a Fulbright and she was in Costa Rica. And at the end of her time there, we were going to travel around the country. And she, at the time, didn't drive. And so the deal was, because she had money and I didn't, because I was a student and she was a professional, she would cover the cost of the rental car, but I would drive everywhere. So my job, while she was at work, was the end of her last day, was to pick up the rental car. I had the reservation, and I showed up at the car rental agency. And I don't speak Spanish fluently. I didn't grow up speaking Spanish, but I've learned Spanish, and I pulled out my best Spanish. And I talked to the agency desk, and I said, you know, I'm here in Spanish. I'm here. Nanci E Luna Jime, here's my reservation. I'm here to get my rental car. And the woman was just so kind, and she looks me in the eye, and she says, oh, I'm sorry, the person who rents the cars isn't here today. I'm like, I misunderstood her. Oh, wait, okay. What? So she repeats it, and I'm like, no, I did understand her. There's something wrong. I was like, no, I'm sorry, you've misunderstood. I have a reservation, see? And then I point to the piece of paper, like she can't read. This is the talking louder thing. And then I'm like really insistent that I have a car and I have to pick it up now, and et cetera, et cetera. And then she's very kind. She says, I'm sorry, the person who rents the cars isn't here today. Like she just is like, I'm really sorry for the inconvenience, but it's not going to change the outcome. I'm having a U.S. experience in the vicinity of Costa Rica. And at that moment, I'm like, what kind of people work here? What kind of business do you have? Can I need to talk to the manager? Like I just escalated this thing in a total U.S.er fashion, okay? So this isn't about like, because I'm Latina, I don't have dualistic experiences among Latinos. Quite the contrary, right? What we found, the common element that runs and comes up around dualism is fear. Fear is the emotion Perry doesn't talk about, but my mentor Lillian Ribal-Rose does, which creates more rigid behavior. It's a fear-based response. Of course, I'm terrified. What's my sister going to do when she finds out we're not leaving on this trip, right? And all of this stuff, emotions are coming up. So we want to understand basically that when it's a knee-jerk, rigid response, and rigid is the important piece here around dualism to understand. You tend to look to the higher authority as the person to tell you what's true or not true, the rule, the policy, the dogma, etc. And you tend to be very concrete, right? You're going to count drops. You're going to come back to the facts, okay?